Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the AK Pallav Show, which is a show by the immigrants, for the immigrants, bringing interesting and often exciting insights from the lives of people all over the world. Today, we have a very special guest, Jyotika Gupta, who's based in San Francisco, and she's not only donning a hat of a successful corporate person, but also an entrepreneur, wife, a mother, and also a very proud member of the Indian diaspora in the US. Jyotika, a very warm welcome to you on our AK Pallav show. And we're looking forward to hear more about your journey until now and also your plans for the future. Welcome again.
Much Pallav and Akshay for having me.
Jyotika,
Very
the
nice to be.
first question which I had in mind, why US? How did US happen in your life?
Yeah, so I've been here for 7 years, and we moved directly from India, specifically Delhi, to the US. This was not a decision that I made for myself in some way, but a decision that I've enjoyed over this past few years, and we can talk more about that. So my husband, he's an entrepreneur, and as he was expanding and growing his startup, we decided to move to the United States. And I was a consultant, a strategy consultant back in India. Decided to uproot ourselves and move countries and continents. In hindsight, I think this is one of the most best decisions that we made. And yeah, so I'm very excited and happy to be part of the Indian diaspora in the US.
Yeah, amazing. And if you could go back a little bit, I would like to understand, like, where did you grow up? What kind of family setup were you raised in, and how did you went into higher education and undergrad and so on?
Yeah, so I'm born and brought up in this small town, which is not so small anymore, called Dehradun. So
Yeah, I mean, it's quite
yeah,
popular. I'm not sure small or big, but it's quite popular. Like, yeah.
It seems like
yeah.
we are getting in touch with a lot of people from Uttarakhand. Two
Yeah,
people in
today
the same
also
day.
me and
Today.
Akshay were with another Indian, like NRI person, or you can say a more Dutch Indian person who was also from Dehradun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was born in this town which is very much known for its education and schooling, has some of the best boarding schools in the world.
Yeah.
So really was part of that ecosystem and community. So education was something that was very top of mind for my parents, and I have a younger sister as well. So grew up there. My parents still live there, and they were always sort of excited that our daughter should go to IIT. So very stereotypically, I went to Kota, which is the IIT coaching hub, for 2 years. Did not make it the first time, but within those 2 years, I think I realized that I want to study in the best institute. So spent another year grilling myself, preparing, and then finally got through. And then joined IIT Kharagpur and spent there 5 years studying architecture.
Oh, nice. Do you know Ankur Jain from
Yeah,
Kota?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
think,
he's my
I
very
think
close friend.
we maybe were a couple of years.
Because that's why Akshay was saying intro. Then we have some surprise. I'm originally from Kota.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
and and of, and of
and
course
that's why
I
we have a
also
very, yeah.
studied
He
in
also
Konkan.
studied in Kota.
So there is
Ah,
plenty of
of
shared
course.
history.
Yeah. Do you like kachori? That's the kachori test we have.
I like kachoris. Yeah, I think I was on an unhealthy eating streak while in Koda, but it was good. It was good fun.
Yeah. And do
And
Uh,
you
we,
know Abhishek Bharadwaj, Nehru Hall?
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he's my best friend from childhood. I just saw him few days ago.
Amazing, amazing. The
Yeah.
world is really small.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice. Yeah. Okay. Please continue. Yeah.
Yeah, so post Kharagpur, so while I was in Kharagpur, I was very, just working with a lot of startups, learning about them. I wanted to apply to B school. So that time, ISB had just launched their Young Leaders program, to which I
Yeah.
applied. It was the
Yeah. I
first
heard about
cohort.
it. Yeah.
So got through that, And then I said, hey, let's shake things up a little. I don't want to join a typical company. Why not join a startup? And I was doing a bunch of interviews, but came across an opportunity in Hyderabad, a very small boutique consulting firm focusing a lot on analytics and very good work for US based clients. So I
Mhm.
was there, I think, seventh employee that time. Spent a couple of years there and then joined ISB for their MBA program.
Nice. And what startup was that? Do they still exist by the same name, or
Yeah, they were
have
called
they?
Nerelytics and they are actually acquired now. So they grew very well and were acquired a couple of years back.
Nice.
Might
Okay.
have been an
And so
interesting journey if you
what
would have stayed
year?
there.
Yes, yes, but still in touch with the founder and the team. And yeah, it was nice to see their journey from the sidelines.
Yeah, because you don't often hear acquisitions in the like consulting space, or
Yeah,
maybe they happen, but you don't hear a lot about them.
yeah, and I think one fun fact is they were completely bootstrapped for 10 years. They
Oh
never
wow.
raised any funding, but very sustainable and growing business.
Oh, that's pretty good. Who
That's what
acquired them?
2024 startups are pretty much have to be all about.
Yes, 2024. So there was this company called Accordion, which is a private equity focused firm.
Ah,
Mhm.
okay,
They acquired.
nice. So you did fulfill your parents' conventional expectations. Then,
Yes.
so what year did you graduate from ISB then?
2015, and then I got into consulting, so joined Accenture Strategy. I wanted to experience that kind of work, which is intense, a very steep learning curve, and enjoyed. I think the journey there for 2 years. I was based in India. I lived in Philippines for I think 8 or 9 months.
Oh, nice.
So got a lot of like international and cross border experience working with different companies. And then when that's when we decided let's shake things up. Let's move to the US, which meant that I had to sort of quit my job, stay sort of unemployed for a few months, and then I got my work permit and joined an analytics company in the US.
Oh, so you first like you moved to US, then you got a job there in this
Yeah,
analytics firm. Okay. And
yeah. So it was
when
a
you say
market.
we,
Yeah, it
sorry,
was a
when you
market
say
research
we,
firm where I started working. But sorry,
and
yeah.
when you, yeah, sorry, I was like, when you say we, I just want to dig a bit deeper. When did the we happen from you being single
Oh,
and,
yeah, sorry. That was something that we completely missed. So the we happened 16 years back, in the sense
oh,
that my husband and I, we met at IIT Kharagpur. So he was a year senior to me. So we were both part of our college fest team, and that's when we started spending time together. And if you don't know Kharagpur, like it's very isolated, from the real world in some way. So you end up like just spending a lot of time with the people there, very focused on the activities within the campus. So that helped in a way. And then so we dated for like 6, 7 years, and then post my MBA. So 2015 is when we got married.
nice.
I have
And
I have like two very strong connections to IIT Kharagpur. One, first is that I've actually visited it two times, 2009 and 2010. Back then, I was part of the dance team of our college, which was in Chandigarh, and we used to go all the way, taking a train which would take like 30 hours, all the way to Kharagpur. But then we did get a standing ovation and we won. That was another part of the story, which was called Spring Fest. I think that was like the festival of IIT
Yeah,
Kharagpur.
so hope it was worth it. Yeah,
Yeah,
looks like it was worth it.
and there's also another couple, Kshitij Khurana and Akriti Swaroop. I don't know if you know them.
Yeah,
It's also
I
both.
know.
Yeah, they're both my batchmates from IIM Cal. So that's like
Ah,
the other.
nice.
But yeah, it seems like IIT Kharagpur does, apart from producing MBAs, it's pretty probably well known for producing couples as well, successful ones.
Yes.
Because
Yes, couples for sure. And as I said, there's not much opportunity outside the campus, so you, you kind of end up, yeah, connecting with each other, which worked well for me.
I'm married by proximity.
Yeah.
But no, it's and how was that process for you actually though? Because it seems like, how long were you at Accenture before you decided that you had to quit and move?
I was there for a couple of years.
Couple of years. So then you were almost like, and were you really enjoying it? Were you looking forward to continuing it? And then how was that process of, okay, I have to let go of this and go into this completely unknown journey, which is not necessarily a decision you made for yourself? How was that? And because I'm asking this because this happens to quite a lot of people, especially in a relationship, when they move and then they have to go figure out their stuff once they get to the new place, while the other partner already has something which they are looking forward to.
Yeah, so I was really enjoying work with some stellar folks at Accenture who I'm, still connected with. Really enjoyed the work and doing some extremely, uh, challenging work. Problem solving was something that was very exciting. So it was a decision that was hard to take, but felt like the right one.
Hmm.
I think um, I yeah, it was a big change. And when we moved here, I was like, hey, how am I going to find a job in the US? But I think I took my time to connect more with the people, with the community here, both personal and professional. I did like a course in product management, just to get a flavor of what product management, which is still a very hot space in the valley, looks like.
Yeah.
And then just like trying to do some projects on the side to build my connections. But um, I think in the personal front, it was a smoother change just because I had more friends here than in India. So it was
Yeah.
not, it, which was interesting. So it was good to have that ecosystem in place in some way. Of course, there was a lot of figuring out, and especially when you move from India, you aren't hands on a lot of things outside your work. So that was a learning curve, just like learning what to do when things in a house break and stuff like that. So
Nice.
I think that was an interesting journey. But I think professionally, I was able to apply for jobs, and I got an amazing offer at Glassdoor, where I spent 5 years, which is one of the most respected tech companies in the US, and a disruptor, in the HR tech space. And I think what I learned in this overall journey is, when you're out of your comfort zone, when you're feeling challenged, when you're feeling that things are a bit uncertain, that's when you start growing and learning. So I think if I reflect back, I think these past few years have been like the most rewarding and gratifying in some way, both personally and professionally.
And I have a question about, yes, you said your husband is also an entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
probably he started his journey before you did, I guess, in terms of entrepreneurship. Can you share some information what he's doing, or do we know his company, or is it big enough or relevant enough for general people?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start with sort of his journey. He also graduated from Kharagpur, as I mentioned, and he worked a couple of years in an HR company called Train or Ingersoll Rand,
Ah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
Yeah.
heard.
That's right, yeah.
And then he's always been, a super ambitious guy. So he wanted to, and in college itself, he'd started sort of like a project and a sort of a company with one of his colleagues, who's now also his co-founder. So back in 2012, 2013, he used to, like, in the evenings, finish his work and then meet up with his co-founder, and they used to literally work in a basement that they'd sort of rented out or gotten from someone. And that's how their company actually started. The company is called Innovator. They're a healthcare data platform.
Yeah, I know that. It's a
Yeah,
unicorn now, right?
yeah, they're a
Yeah.
unicorn. I think, yeah, they've been doing well. they started as a very horizontal analytics platform, but over time pivoted to healthcare and US healthcare specifically. So, I've kind of seen that journey closely as well. And I think when I was going to start my job, I didn't want to sit at home. So I said, okay, I'm going to help him out. And we used to literally do cold calls on Skype that time. And they were working with professors.
You mean
So
cold call to
to like,
customers or?
yeah, to customers. So we used to, and their customers that time were professors. This is back in 2013, 2014 maybe.
Oh, wow.
So we used to, yeah, just, it was a very scrappy time, but it was nice to see that journey over the past 10, 12 years.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't dive a lot deeper because we might have to invite him
Yeah.
at some point for that. But what question I was going to go was, you saw very closely your partner establishing his company from scratch. Yeah, now it's a pretty recognized name. I know about it from, like, I don't know it very well what they do, but I know, I've heard about the name. And also now you're in the hub of entrepreneurship, at least since last 7 years. First as an employee of pretty globally well renowned name Glassdoor, and then you're doing something of your own now. How, like, if I were to ask you, what how do you summarize this energy of entrepreneurship which you have seen in your home and now also in Silicon Valley? What is that secret sauce or the thing which is going on, which is, yeah, which we see the results of, like, why this is so successful as a hub?
Um, so yeah, so I think now been here, I just feel like it's very exciting and it's very infectious being around entrepreneurs. I think, uh, I am also now running a venture capital fund where the idea is that we want to support entrepreneurs that are very purposeful and mission driven in their journey. There are a lot of startups, and right now, startup is the cool thing to do. But the ones that are really focused on the problem that they're solving and who they're solving for are the ones that eventually succeed. And I think that's something that we've seen in firsthand, with my husband's journey, with a lot of the startups that we are supporting, with Glassdoor, that's mission driven, and they really help job seekers find the right jobs. So I think that's been sort of one key learning, that being very purposeful plays in the long run. I think secondly, just understanding who you're solving for and building user empathy, focusing on the user is something that not a lot of people can do, but the ones can do really stand out. Focusing on that becomes important. And I think patience is the key here. And I'm a VC myself, but a lot of startups are always focused, like the milestone is the next round of funding, next round of funding. I don't think that's the right milestone. The right milestone is, hey, like, are we able to solve the next problem? Are we able to focus on the next solution? Are we able to help a new user, a new customer? I think that becomes very, very important. So it's a very long term game. And if you think about it that way, those are the ones that are the outliers and the ones that succeed.
And no, thanks for sharing that. I'm also curious to know, like, the difference which you have seen in India or wherever else you have worked versus the valley. So that also, maybe if you could highlight that difference based on your personal experience a bit, that would be great as well.
Yeah. And when you say difference, are you referring to just difference in entrepreneurship and the kind of startups, or generally like,
Let's first start maybe the professional space and then
yeah,
the outside professional. Like, what energy difference have you felt, like, in people, in the culture, in working style, in terms of what's normal versus not, like,
yeah,
for example, I can imagine pitching a self-flying plane in New Delhi would be differently perceived than pitching making a deck and going into conferences and investors and pitching that same concept in Silicon Valley.
yeah.
One might be called a little too mad or insane, and one might be considered just insane enough to make it a reality. So, like, what I mean, like, how is the difference in the culture? according to you?
Yeah, so maybe we can start with sort of like the ways of working and professional aspects, as you said. I think there is a lot of difference having worked in both geographies. Um, in India, it's a lot about hustle. People are extremely hardworking, and I'm not saying people are not here, but I think in India, people just because the size of the country and the population for every job, there are 10 times more people than you have in the US. Uh, People are just very very hardworking, and that energy is amazing. I think in the US, people are more process driven. They are more structured. There is more work life balance, if you can say that, in the US versus India. But also just in terms of the advancements that we are seeing in technology and in AI now, a lot of the disruption, as you know, is happening in the Silicon Valley. So to your point, Pallav, like if someone's pitching an idea that may sound crazy to someone sitting in Delhi, may not be as crazy to someone sitting here, because you have like those binoculars to see what is going to happen in the future in some way. I think from that perspective, people are more risk taking here, and also the access to capital in the US is there. Although now I would also argue that in Bangalore and other cities in India, people are getting funding. But a lot of the focus in India, and the unicorns and the companies we see, is disrupting the consumer space, or disrupting what we want to bring from a D2C perspective. A lot of what is happening here in the US is focused more on enterprise SaaS, focused more on hardware that can disrupt incumbent industries like manufacturing and operations. So those are some of the sort of the differences that I see, if that was sort of your question.
Yeah, yeah, makes it clear.
Given that we are already talking about your experience with startups and venture capital, like I think first quickly going back and congratulating you on starting the entrepreneurial journey with the launch of the venture fund. So congratulations once again for that. You mentioned a couple of things there. So what I would like to maybe get into is, one, how did that actually happen? Because that's also, I was actually quite recently at a PE/VC conference, and I know for sure that in Europe, particularly, the climate for emerging VCs is not necessarily very, very favorable at the moment. So how did that journey happen? What was the thinking behind going for launching a new venture capital company? And second, you mentioned around purpose-driven and mission-driven founders. And the couple of things that you mentioned, it almost sounds like pretty much if I am a founder, I will come to any venture capital fund saying, yes, I am focused on my customer. I am very mission driven. So how do you actually differentiate and identify who really actually means it versus who just does that lip service? How would you actually identify that particular trait or characteristic out of perhaps the multiple applications that you might get? So it's a two-pronged question: a story first, and then perhaps thesis second.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I think this was back in September 22, and even before that, so a lot of our friends, who are starting up, who are now diving into this entrepreneurial journey back
Mm-hmm.
in India, and trying to like eventually scale and build for the US market, used to come to my husband, my co-founder, and myself, and we'd say, yeah, we know someone, who's been an expert in the healthcare space, for example, or we know
Mm-hmm.
someone who's really deep into the space. They built a similar technology. Let's connect the two of you so we can
Mm-hmm.
help you out. And then we reflected on that and said, hey, is there a way to do that more scalably and sustainably so that we can help a lot more founders who are trying to make an impact? And that's when the idea of this fund came, that let's get these founders who we want to invest in, and let's get a bunch of operators and experts who would invest in our fund as LPs
Mm-hmm.
and create this fund. So that was sort of the genesis, that we wanted to create this community that helps these founders grow and scale. And we created this fund. We raised capital from 100 plus LPs,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up investing in about 25 companies. And now we are in the process of raising our second fund. So that's been the journey. So that sort of first fund journey was, everything was part time. It was, 5 6 of us who used to explore deals. We were getting a lot of inbound companies who wanted to partner with us. And these companies, Akshay and Pallav, they had raised 2 to 3 million in capital, and the check size that we were putting in was 100K. So that was literally nothing compared to what they had already raised. But they
Wow.
wanted to associate with us because we really spent a lot of time with them. And we, as in like the team, the Z21
Mm-hmm.
team. And also, there were those experts in that community who would help these companies find customers, become their customers. Some became
And
also
these experts
co-founders in
that
these
you're,
startups.
sorry, I'm interrupting you. These expert that you're referring to are the 100 set of LPs who had invested with you.
Yeah.
Are these the people? You're okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we had, co-founders,
Hmm.
someone like the head of data analytics at Cisco, and that really helped some of these founders. And that's what gave me conviction that this is something that is driving value. This is something that makes me feel very satisfied, that I'm able to help so many amazing companies and founders. So
Hmm.
that's when I jumped with both my feet in, back in February, March, and I quit my job full time. And I said, let's shake it up.
And
And
the USP, would you say, is that compared to other venture capitalists, in your case, they would also get ready access to this pool of industry experts? Is that the main USP? Or and also plus you are more hands on, like
We are very hands on. So yes, like other funds, may have some pool of experts, but I don't think they're as active as we end up being. So we help founders, like almost a third of our portfolio has raised their next round already, and we've helped almost all of them in raising money. We also, as I said, like these experts would become customers, would become design partners. And that's not the kind of support that is typically provided in the early stages, which is pre-seed and seed investments. And that's where we actually found that there is the most need. So that's been sort of the focus that we have. Moving to the second part of your question, Akshay, how do we like figure out and parse out? I think we spend, as we are, evaluating deals, we spend a lot of time with the founders.
mm-hmm.
That's also because in early stages, you are really betting on the founder. You're really over indexing on their ability to scale a company, to pivot when things are not going in the right direction, and being able to just work with each other if there are co founders, and also hire and scale an excellent team. So those are the things that we spend a lot of time just speaking to the founder, understanding their motivation and journey. Secondly, we also speak to their customers if they've been in the market, and understand how good is their product. Are they building a product that's solving a need for the customer, or is that just a promise? And we've also tested and used some of these platforms with ourselves, or asked our community members to use before we invest. For example, we recently invested in a demand generation platform, and we know the team, they're juniors from IIT Kharagpur. But we use that platform for our fund. We asked 3 or 4 of our portfolio companies to use that, a few of our community members to use that. And that's when we made the decision whether to invest or not. Because yes, demand generation is a need, but how useful is that product? Are they listening to the users and the customers becomes very, very important. So there's a very thorough process that we follow to build that conviction in our team. And then one more point that I'll make here is, in our team, we love challenging each other. So it's not like one person excited about the deal, let's close it. We love to spend hours and hours discussing the pros and cons and risks, which makes it just a very intense and thorough process.
And just I've heard the IIT Kharagpur name again. How many of the team members that are there in the fund also from IIT Kharagpur, or is it all IIT Kharagpur? Is it 100%?
It is all except one.
All except one.
And we, yeah, and we also actually hiring two analysts in India now. So I was very conscious that we do not want IIT Kharagpur folks in some way. I'm kidding, and that was not the case. But we're obviously like hiring and building our team and looking at folks that are from other amazing colleges in India.
And
Yeah.
how many partners are you? Like you said, 5.
So
or
we
so.
are two full-time people, my co-founder Raj and I, and then we have a few venture advisors that help us on specific deals focused on their domain and expertise.
But even though I asked the question on a bit of a humorous note, but I think there is an important lesson there, that of course there is always this conversation around how much does an education or an IIT brand or some other brand really helps. And perhaps of course there will always be a question around the quality of the education, but this is like a prime example of how a strong and a powerful alumni network goes such a long way in enabling you in whatever you do later on, because you have this support of a group who's gone through that same process, trusts the brand and the credibility of the institution they're coming from, and which you can leverage as you really go forward in your entrepreneurial journey, if you are from that same, of course, the engineering university or the business school for that matter.
Absolutely, Akshay. And I think it also just given, these are folks we may have known for the past 10, 12 years. We've seen their journey, which gives us a good view of what they are able to build in the future. Is there a good founder problem fit, as I call it? That are these the right founders to solve this problem? And have they seen this in their previous companies? Have they been in that space? So yeah, I think the network really helps. And no surprises, but a lot of our portfolio companies are also from IIT Kharagpur founders.
And is there like a lot
We
of focus on India-based startups, or is it entirely India-based
I asked
startups?
the same question.
Okay.
So we are focusing on majorly startups that are focusing on the US from a go-to-market perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of our startups are building in India and then scaling or selling in the US, which is a very smart way, of course, to build, because
Yeah.
India has such great product and tech talent. And there is, of course, the cost arbitrage that comes with that. So it just makes a lot of sense to tap into that incredible talent back home.
And just switching gears a bit outside the professional life, administratively, it might be a boring question. You said you came to US on a work visa, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. So my husband was in an O1 visa, more specifically, and then sort of I was on
Could
a
you
spouse.
give our audience like a very brief download of what this O visa is and what kind of visa uh, which was applicable to you? What does it stands for?
Yeah. So O1 visa is for folks with, they call it like exceptional ability. And for someone, who's an entrepreneur, who's in the research field or has done something in arts and culture, has had, um, been cited or quoted, it's specifically for those people.
It's either or is and?
Or,
Oh yeah, okay.
and would be too tough.
I don't know. You never know.
So we kind of like build that case for him to get that visa. And what that helps in the future is it expedites your path to a green card. So
Okay.
my husband and I, we came here. I waited for a few months to get my work permit on sort of O3, which is the spouse visa. And we were able to get our green card in probably 3 years since we applied for
Wow.
that, like 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
And how it's very subjective question. How easy or difficult is it for, let's say, a layman to aspire for O visa? Like, is it that straightforward that you just tick one of these boxes and a bit of luck, obviously, on your application. Is it like the essays for MBA, or how easy or transparent is this process according to you?
think it's subjective, as you said, Pallav.
Okay.
And it's more like showing a history than a point in time, essay or something. So you kind of need to show that you've been received some awards, or you've been quoted in news articles in India, or there's a paper you've written and stuff like that.
And do you like? Are they also, because it's US very capitalistic? Are they also specialized lawyers and companies who help you build that case, or?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can imagine, right? I mean, like, okay.
uh,
Also,
yeah.
would you highlight this or recommend this to our viewers to explore if some of them can be a strong candidates for O visa, or do you think it's like, you, if right? Or is
I
that
think
is the bar that high?
I think one should definitely explore. You never know. And I also feel like people in general underestimate themselves a lot. So once you start, thinking and reflecting about yourself, there is more to you than what you think yourself.
And
And what
any idea about the costs involved in this process? Like, is it too prohibitive, or are they like something which an average working person can aspire to fund?
not sure how the costs have evolved over time. Often, a lot of companies are also taking this route. And when I say companies, like maybe startups, where the
Yeah.
co-founders, CXO team is trying to move here. So the company would probably take care of that cost. Um, but yeah, I think it's become more common than back 7 years back when we had explored
Yeah.
this path.
And
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
definitely different than the one which is, Pallav, if you remember, we had a conversation with Sambudha, that if you raise money from a Delaware company, which is I think minimum 500K, if you raise that kind of money, then you can also just apply based on that. Which I'm not 100% sure if it was the same one or it was a different one.
Yeah, it was something like, if you can prove that your investment will generate jobs for the US, and that value was 500,000, and
Yeah.
like that money is going back into US as investment or salaries of employees or something of that sort.
Be related to this, but I'm not sure. But yeah, I think it's maybe like showing that you can generate employment could also be one of the criterias for the O1 visa.
For the woman, I
Uh,
have a feeling it was the same category. It's just that it has a broad set of criteria, and if you are by demonstrating that you have the ability to raise 500K for a company based in the US, you are kind of showing that you are exceptional, and that probably just boils down to all of that entire list. Well, maybe you should show your Forbes article, man, and if you want to apply, that should work.
First, I need to come up with a purpose and mission for
Mission
this.
driven. You have to be mission driven.
No, we can. I think no, it's a good that up. So, as we mentioned, like we do our introduction as part of the conversation. So Akshay and myself also run a micro insurance slash now expanding in financial services startup. We based out of Netherlands, but I can tell you a little bit about our flagship product, which
yeah,
we invented. And I used to live in Middle East for a couple of years, so that's how the need came in front of me, and we invented a micro insurance which helps migrants all over the world to travel back to their home country in case of family emergency. God forbid, I'm not sure, in your 7 years you might have come across, in your circle people may have come across a bad news from their family, and they had to fly back immediately, and cost are like probably
yep,
$2,500 or something or more, and plus the cost to travel last mile, because not everybody lives in the city of the airport. In those cases, let's say for 5,000 US dollars, some is covered if you're part of their micro insurance. If we're talking micro, means like $1 or two per person per month premium. So we came up with this product, and we are like tying up with a lot of distributors, mainly retail banks, mostly focused now in the UK, NL, and UAE. But of course, US is also a pretty big market. So that's what we are up to.
That is amazing. You both, apart from running a podcast, are full-time entrepreneurs. And maybe I should interview you both at some point, if and
Oh,
when
you
we,
are you are also have your own podcast, or?
if as I said, if and when we start our podcast. But we want to do that. I think, yeah, just meeting so many founders, I'm like, it's very hard to write that in an article. Like, there needs to be a dialogue.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
No, good that Akshay brought this point because we wear a few hats, so I think it's good for us
Yeah.
to share notes on that as well. And we are slowly, because of our experience in this space and talking to a lot of people in the banking community and fintechs to sell our insurance product, we also stumbled upon two other opportunities. One is medical insurance for elderlies,
Right.
because a lot of Indians want to bring their elderlies, and they usually are above 65 years, and there is not a dedicated health insurance for those, especially in the Middle East and also in US. I think it's quite fragmented and not really meeting the needs. So we are actually building with one of the insurer, or trying to build a tailored product for elderlies. And the other, very recently, we are trying to explore what we can do in personal financing space for the international grad students, like PhDs and masters.
See, I think that's what I call purposeful. Because whenever I'm looking for insurance for my parents, there is, it's so opaque. I don't even know what that covers. I don't even know if, God forbid something happens and we need to use it. Like, will it even cover?
Yeah.
So I'm glad, yeah, you are thinking about those use cases
Yeah, we
and
start from the UAE, but we
yeah,
do know for both of our products, US is pretty big potential
yeah.
market. Yeah.
US healthcare spend is larger than India's GDP. So there is like no lack
Yeah.
of the amount of spend on these kind of products in the US.
Mhm. We're back to healthcare, and that kind of brings innovation kind of almost like back into the horizon. But I also have like a deep connection to innovation. I've connected because you're also ISB, right? So you probably know Hemant Gupta as well.
Yeah, Hemant and I were actually classmates.
Ah, okay. Like Hemant and I were classmates back in Peck because that's where I did my undergrad,
Ah,
and I literally
right.
spoke to him yesterday.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. But I know the healthcare space in the US. I've heard from him a few times about how complicated it is. I think it's just insane how difficult and complex they make it, which almost always creates opportunities for businesses to do something good out of.
Yeah, yeah. I think for like all stakeholders involved, it is a very complex process to navigate.
Yeah.
Be patients or doctors or payers.
We've talked a lot about the past and also in a way how you've landed into the present. But let's jump into the future a little bit. What's your aspiration, more what's your purpose and mission at this point of time, and how do you kind of see that translating a few years down the line? And there I think you can also see if there is a mix of India, US. How do you see that evolving geographically? How do you see your motivations changing? What drives you at the moment? So if you can delve a bit more into your future perspective about your I think probably professional to begin with.
Yeah, I think we are on this mission to build sort of the largest platform or fund to help entrepreneurs scale these purposeful and mission-driven companies. So over time, I think my vision is that we are the largest fund that supports some amazing entrepreneurs, and we are already working with, as I said, 25, 26 companies that are largely Indian founders. We will continue to do so in a more deep way with more investments in a few other companies through our second fund, and then hopefully with our subsequent funds. So that's the idea, that we can see that journey end to end, when founders are literally getting their second, third, fourth customer, to when they become unicorns, or to when they're scaling to multi-billion dollars in revenue. That would be just a very, very exciting journey to see. and being able to play a small role in that. That is something that just makes me believe in this the work that we are doing through Z21 Ventures. Yeah, so that's on the professional side.
And um, how, like, I'm not sure if you already talked about it. Could you maybe share some numerical data, like how big is the fund, if that's not confidential? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. So our first fund was a very small fund. The idea was to test this model. So it was a $3.5 million fund that we raised all from individuals. Our next fund, which we are in the process of raising, is going to be a $50 million fund.
five
Uh,
zero?
50, yes.
Yeah, amazing.
That's nice.
Great to
That's
know.
definitely a nice
Uh,
multiple.
Yeah, definitely a nice multiple. What gives us more confidence that we are on this journey is we have an anchor investor on board for the second fund. So they're an institutional investor who will be putting in a part of that fund. And then we're already speaking to individuals to again build an engaged community for Z21.
Okay, yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I think we are kind of nearing the last leg, unless Akshay, you have any specific area to cover.
No, I
Yeah, I
think,
was just
yeah, no,
go
go
ahead,
for
go
it.
ahead. No, I was just maybe want to briefly touch on the more personal side, like how do you manage the family life, spending time with your daughter, if I'm not wrong, is
Yeah.
daughter, right? Yeah, daughter, and also spending time for yourself, like your hobbies, interest, or how do you how do you balance all these balls?
Yeah. So my daughter, she's 2.5, very fun and active. So I feel like spending time with her is now a very de-stressor for me. I would
Okay.
not say that if you had asked me this question maybe a year back.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun right now. So she's a very outdoor person, and we end up doing things that she enjoys. So we love, going outdoors and doing a bunch of fun stuff in and around. I also like, so for myself personally, I love doing yoga. So try to spend at least 3 to 4 days a week just focusing on that, which helps me just feel more grounded towards the end of the day. And I think the other thing is traveling is something that both my husband and I enjoy, and something we paused, in the first maybe year or two of my daughter, but now we're kind of picking that up. So we try to do some road trips in and around San Francisco, or going, to India to meet family. That's always a fun trip as well. So those are the few things that we try to
And do
balance.
you have any idols you follow or any role models, or whom do you look up to in terms of where you're going professionally and also personally?
Yeah, I think personally, my mom, she's an amazing role model for me. The way she's so grounded, the way she's always in whenever like anything, adversities or anything that happens, like she's the one that's taking charge. So I think personally, always looked up to my mom. I think more on the professional front, I have a few role models, but someone that really stands out to me is Sheryl Sandberg. I think the way she's pivoted her roles before she got to Facebook, and the way she's also been such a key early stakeholder at Facebook, transformed the company, and then decided that she wants to focus on lean in and lead that charge when she had a big setback on her professional side, talking very openly about that. I think that's something that really stands out. That often leaders are always pegged as people who are just succeeding in their professional journeys, but being more vulnerable and showing your personal side, I think that makes them more human, and that is something that I connect to more.
Uh, Last question from my side. Any any fangirl moments while you were in Silicon Valley or traveling or in your meetings? Like, did you happen to bump into any of those famous people we often hear about?
Yeah, so actually that my husband and I, we were invited to this JP Morgan Tech 100 conference, which was in Bozeman, and this was essentially like top tech companies, but the speakers were, Satya Nadella, Sam Altman. So getting to see those people, just like, the people who've driven so much disruption, driven so much shareholder value, um, was just seeing them live, was very inspiring. And hearing them talk about the future, I think that was exciting. So that was a very fangirl kind of an event that we've been to.
That sound like, yeah.
Yeah.
I I just have like just one last question from my side, and I kind of want to link back to the idol that you just mentioned and how being vulnerable was something that made you connect with her as a leader more. So far, I think from in our conversation, what I felt was like we've definitely discussed a lot of highs, success at the venture, success at Glassdoor, before that IIT Kharagpur. If you had to pick like one moment which you would say was perhaps a low moment, which really, because usually those are the kind of times would teach us the most. Perhaps if you can share a story about one of that lows, perhaps like the one that you're more comfortable with, and of course the lowest of the low, which really taught you a lot, and which typically tends to resonate with both me and Pallav a lot, because we've seen our fair shares of highs and plenty of lows. So
Yep.
would love to hear something on that front.
Yeah. I'm just because I appreciate vulnerability. I'm going to share one of the lowest of lows experience, which I think has built a lot of resilience in me.
Mhm.
As you said, Akshay, it's just made me a much stronger person. Uh, so my husband went through a period of acute depression for a year and a half, and this was sort of right after our daughter was born. So I think that was a period that was very challenging for me as a new mother. Also trying to make sure my husband's getting the support he needs. Yeah, just juggling work and home and child and husband, like, just became very very overwhelming for me. I think a few things that I learned in that journey, if I can share, is one, just ask for help. I called my mom, and she was, you know, literally back in India, but a phone call away, and they were here to help me with our daughter. We were able to get a wonderful nanny who was, helping us out. So I think that was one. I think the other was just also being vulnerable at work and not thinking like your personal and professional life are separate. I was able to speak to my manager and tell them, and my team was amazing. Like, they were like, if you need time off, if you need a sabbatical, do what you need. So that just was again like a support system in some way for me during that process. And then I think just I think professional help. And as Indians, we often have this stigma like, hey, if you're seeing a doctor, that means, there's something wrong. And mental health continues to be a stigma as much as we don't want it to be, especially in this day and age. So I think just being very open about it. Yeah, just as I said, like, going back to the point about seeking help, um, that's something that helped me through those times. But now, I think, yeah, we are back on track. He's obviously, like, out of that phase, but I think it was definitely something that just made me understand that there's a lot of patience that I need to show in that phase. Just not try to see that light at the end of the tunnel, which becomes very hard. And then I think lastly, just focusing on my mental health, thinking about how I care for myself becomes very, very important. Like, I got myself a therapist. I was, taking out time to do exercise and yoga. That helped me just reground myself as well. I try to step out of home to meet friends, which I wasn't able to do and or consciously didn't do. So I think those things helped me personally during that phase.
Thanks for sharing. Sounds like you make it sound like obviously smooth and easy, but I'm sure like there are much more details in between those lines.
And I think it was a journey, but something again that in hindsight made me just a stronger person. So I wouldn't want anyone to go through that, but I'm grateful that I went through that, just to be able to learn and grow.
It's not our tradition to end the conversation on a on a moment like that, but somehow it just happened to be like that. But we really appreciate you being candid and honest. I think we really felt the openness to share everything that you have learned, and I think that's the beauty of a conversation, which we really appreciate. So once again, a big thank you from our side.
Thank you both. And I know it's very late for both of you, so really appreciate you sort of adjusting to my
No problem.
timing.
It's our pleasure. And yeah, thanks a lot for taking out the time.